back to the Outside Film Festival. Each year, the team from Mountain Film sits down with some of the festival's most dynamic and fascinating individuals. These conversations are known as Minds of Mountain Film, discussions which convey the insight and inspiration of Mountain Film's presenters. Now, Ali Carr-Troxell talks with environmentalist David Rothschild.
Hi, welcome to Minds of Mountain Film. I'm Ali Carr-Troxell, managing editor of Outside Magazine. I'm here with David Rothschild. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Doing
How
well
you doing?
this morning? I'm good.
Good.
So let's talk a little bit about the Plastiki mission. I mean,
Why not?
Yeah, why not, right? That was a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I kind of got post-plastiki natal depression sort of thing. You know, it was born, it's done, and I'm now like...
Postpartum.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you know, it's weird when you're in it. And it was three and a half years of my life, you know, you're in it
Right.
and everything's, you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And now I'm, you know, it's like, ugh, where's it gone? But it's still here. It was obviously an incredible adventure that just keeps on giving, you know,
Yeah.
it keeps on growing and just has been, you know, really eye-opening for me in terms of kind of, I think, really differentiating between an expedition and an adventure. And I've now figured that out.
So you talked a little bit about all the plastic bottles that were in the boat, you know, for buoyancy. And I know that the designers of the boat were America's Cup Challenger boat designers.
Yeah.
What was their reaction when you were like, I want to build a boat out of recyclables?
Well, you know, I think the first couple of years we worked with an architect who had actually never designed a boat, and so it was a really exploratory period, and it was actually the funnest period because it was kind of there's no wrong or right. It was totally new territory for everybody.
Yeah.
And then basically a friend of mine just was like, hey, you really need to go and see a naval architect because you guys are going, you obviously haven't been to sea before in any major way. And we're like, well, yeah, maybe.
So the boat held up then in those storms.
It did. You know, it was funny because we get a lot of sailors would come down to the pier and look at it, and they would walk around and they'd be like, yeah, you've never been to sea before. You know, these old salty sea dogs would come with, you know, you're gonna die, and you know, and you've never been to sea, and they would kind of just like pick at every little thing. And so what I realized was that, you know, most boats only have 1, 2, or maybe 3 buoyancy chambers, right? So if you're in a normal boat and you damage that outer shell, it's like it drags you down, right? That's your flotation through displacement. And so I was like, well, you only have 1 buoyancy chamber. I have 12,500 buoyancy chambers. So we had 12,500 plastic bottles. So I was like, I've got much more area for redundancy, my friend, than you do. So, you know, it was one of those things. It was breaking apart would have been obviously a disaster for everybody. And thank God that didn't happen. Even if we, you know, when you think about this, I mean, we didn't, but even if we'd lost all our bottles, everyone would have, you know, that's awful, what have you done? And it would have been. But when you consider that there's between 5 and 8 million items of plastic going into our ocean every day, right? That kind of puts it into context. And so that's the severity of this issue, is that, you know, it's out of control. Our plastic consumption, single-use plastics, is just out of control.
So how hard was it to find the garbage patch? I mean...
Well, you know, it's not hard because it's everywhere. That's the point. And basically the myth that people have kind of, I guess, carried for the last number of years is that there's this island. And basically what happens is plastic photodegrades, so it disappears, but it doesn't completely disappear, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what makes this whole issue far more ominous, because it gets into the food system. So there may be a lot of people who are going, well, I recycle, I put my stuff in the bin, you know, no issue there, and why should I care? Well, on one side, obviously, there's a huge environmental impact on marine life or marine birds, and then the other side is, you know, this health impact that is yet to be really explored, and that's the transference of toxins in the ocean using the plastic as a kind of transference device. As you know, basically what it does is these little bits of plastic attract all the toxins that come from agricultural runoff and come from big industry, and then it's like, hey, I'm over here, and then they live in the life layer of the ocean, and there's little flecks of plastic where all the little filter feeders, those are the dudes who are just like sucking everything up like hoovers, are sucking up plastic rather than plankton. And now it starts its way into the food system. So I think we're going to see that emerging as a conversation in the next few years, of people sort of realizing that this is a massive health issue.
And you did a dog sledding expedition across the North Pole to raise awareness as well. But I think you came back and weren't feeling like it really had the right grasp, or people weren't quite
Yeah, I mean, climate change is, you know, what we do is we try and take issues and then build an adventure around it, rather than do, what tends to happen is most people go, I want to climb that mountain, how do I get sponsorship? I'll just plug an issue in, and it always feels a little bit like an afterthought.
Yep.
And so what we wanted to do, and what I want to do with the model originally of adventure ecology, was only focus on issues that, you know, that were at the heart of the adventure. I mean, the issue came first, and then the adventure would come around it.
Right.
And the North Pole trip, you know, was in 2006, and it was really, you know, at that point where people were starting to talk, you know, more openly about climate change and the melting ice caps, and I wanted to make it fun and make it real. And I think the problem I had was that you know, climate change is one of those issues that wherever you see climate change written, there's the word debate.
Right.
Interestingly enough, so climate change is kind of one of those weird, I think, distractions of environmentalism. It's an, you know, incredibly, you know, important issue to focus on, and we should be focusing on it, and we should be curbing our, you know, our appetite for carbon-intensive products and services. But the problem is it's got a lot of room for debate, and that becomes a distraction. Plastic in our ocean or plastic in our environment is an undeniable consequence of human consumption.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt about it. It's just a big fat human fingerprint right there.
Yeah.
And that was where it started. And then it was like, well, we don't have to win the debate anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't become part of our energy. And actually our energy is now moving more towards the solutions. Because I think awareness is just, it's kind of easy to say we're going to create awareness. It's much harder to say we're actually going to create solutions to the problems we're seeing and make real change, and that's hard.
And so you have myplastiki.com where people can go and pledge to give up water bottles, give up plastic bags.
Yeah.
I've pledged.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. It sounds so cliche, and I'm going to say it, but it's the little things that make a big difference.
Yeah.
And
so
it's
how
true.
are the numbers? I mean, has it been
It's been
successful?
good, yeah. I mean, you know, we learned, you know, it's interesting. We learned a lot from, people are quite prescriptive in the sense that we said we needed to collect 12,500 signatures initially because that's how many bottles we had. And after that, we just watched it drop off. So we're like, no, but we can collect as many as we want after. So we made a pop-up, and then it started to go. So I think we were about 20,000 or 17, 19, something like that.
Oh, that's great.
Which is good. It's not a huge amount.
Yeah.
It's basically about 1/2 of a second of plastic consumption in the US. But more excitingly, I think it's the material. And that's something that is still being, you know, really discussed and talked about, is the actual superstructure of the plastiki. And I don't want to geek out on plastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to
Appreciate
talk
it.
to you.
Thank you very much.